Forged Battalion, Jake Kulkowski.
Yes, Mike Williams.
Is a new RTS published by Team 17, developed by Petroglyph Games. It's released into early access on Steam on January the 16th. It looks like
now.
It is. It's out. Yeah, it's out now. Basically,
yeah.
It's a very familiar-looking game. It looks like you looks like you've seen. It looks like you've seen it before.
Some bells, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's very. It's got a nice color palette and stuff. It's got a kind of. It's got a bit of its own visual style going on, but it does look very familiar and it does kind of play very familiar. Yeah. So we're just gonna talk about the game and what it is and who's making it and stuff, just so you've got a better idea.
Why it looks so familiar.
Let's just solve that mystery.
Okay.
So it's made by Petroglyph Games, and they've been around for a while making PC games. Some of their founding members worked on Command & Conquer, which is, the PC RTS, I guess.
They created Command & Conquer.
Yeah, so they've got some vintage, veterans.
Man.
Petroglyph, a bit more recently, made Star Wars Empire at War, which is a Star Wars RTS from 2006, I think, and it was a very good game. At least I thought so as a Star Wars fan. I bloody enjoyed it. But they've made a few strategy games, and they've all kind of been a bit under the radar, and the only one that's really stood out is Grey Goo.
Grey Goo, right, that's the one.
And that had something a little bit special about it, and that had this kind of, they had like some lovely cutscenes, and they built this kind of universe around it and stuff, and really put a lot of effort into the balance of these three factions in the game and stuff. It was a good strategy game.
Yeah,
good
genre
RTS
fans really enjoyed that. A lot of people were saying it was up for one of the best strategy games of the year when it came out, I remember. I don't want to say a cult following, but certainly had some hardcore fans, as so many strategy games. Yeah, exactly. So, you even if it's just because of the name, you might have heard it. It certainly sticks with you, doesn't it? Yeah. That's not a goo.
Oh, that wasn't goo puns, man. We're a couple of minutes in. It's a shit name. I got to say that. I don't like the name Grey Goo at all.
Yeah, I thought it was like a Nintendo Switch indie game or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So now they've stepped stuff up with Forged Battalion, which is very much what you do in the game, actually.
Yeah, exactly. It is classic Command & Conquer inspired RTS in every single way. You build a base, you harvest resources, you build an army, and you send that army out to destroy the enemy base. There's two main resources, just like Command & Conquer. You've got power or energy or electricity or whatever, and money. You build a refinery and harvesters to harvest the money. You build power plants to get the energy. Simple as that. That's as far as the economy goes. The game has got all of everything you'd expect. It's got a skirmish mode, multiplayer, campaign. Yep. The early access version, which reminder is available now, has 5 campaign missions, 10 skirmish maps, which support up to 8 players, multiple modes, dedicated servers. It's all good nuts and bolts RTS stuff, with that one twist being that you can
what's the twist?
Create your own faction.
Yeah, it's a bit like a Lego set or something like that.
Exactly.
You've got a couple of base units, and as the game progresses, well, you've kind of got a skill tree. That's the way you've got to look at it, really, isn't it? On a traditional RPG, or one of these modern ones of open worlds, like Horizon, you can play your way and then build as you go. If you want to be stealthier on Horizon Zero Dawn, you put more points into stealth. RTS games, you kind of just have to build your play style around existing units, and that's something that's very, very, common, and it's a given in RTS.
Yeah.
Now, not so much. You can actually build units around and customize units around your particular playstyle. So say you have trouble with vehicles, for example, why don't you just make all of your guys wield some rocket launchers and stuff like that? Can you do that? Yeah, you can. And how do you do it? Spending some resource points.
This is exactly, you earn these credits for basically everything you do in the game, and it's kind of it's suspiciously close to the kind of loot crate and currency system, although there aren't loot crates or anything. Want to pad that out there, get that out of the way. But it's that kind of thing where you do anything, you earn credits, and you can spend it as you want. Maybe I shouldn't have even mentioned loot crates, because as soon as you say it's nothing to do with loot crates. There's no loot crates.
It's nothing. It's just the fact that in the top right you've got a constant reminder of how much currency you have left.
That's what loot crates have done.
See it as experience points. Exactly. So there's no microtransactions or anything like that in this game.
I'm obviously hurt by something. Exactly. I've got some issues there.
It's all right, mate. We'll talk about this. You know what I mean? We're gonna get a drink after this. All right.
Thanks.
But so you spend these points, and you earn, like you're saying, through pretty much anything. Through completing the campaign missions, I believe you get more points through the varying degrees of difficulty. Yeah. You can get it through skirmish mode and multiplayer and things like that. And you can spend that. So when the game starts, when you're a fresh player to the game, you're playing kind of a paint by numbers RTS game. You've got your aircraft, your light and heavy vehicles, and you've got your militia or whatever they're called. And you've got that, which is what you'd expect. But then eventually, like you're saying, you might think, these aircraft are a bit wank. I want to add a rocket launcher to them, buzz them up a bit. Yeah. Boom. You can do that by spending your points.
And I think that is absolutely crucial, because the first impression, I've got to be honest, was not good. because of that very reason, all of your units are like base level, kind of not that interesting. The game asks you to, it gives you a bit of currency to start off with, I think, and then it asks you to unlock one thing, and you do that. But then other than that, all of your stuff is pretty vanilla, right? And that is, so it's not a great first impression, but you play a couple of the campaign missions, for example, like I did, you start getting some money, you start seeing where that tech tree goes. It does get quite interesting, that tech tree. This is the big selling point. We can't stress that enough. This is what the game is built around. I mean, Forged Battalion, it's in the name. It's about building up your own faction.
It's unique, selling point, I suppose.
And it does get pretty interesting. I mean, the technologies begin at kind of standard stuff, like, things getting a bit more strong or reliable or efficient, like base upgrades, so that they can, you don't have to build as many power plants and stuff like that. You can go down that route, or you can go down the route of unlocking like acid hoses, stealth for your units. There's super weapons. It does get interesting, but so it's not there immediately.
That's right. I think that's a problem it's going to face. I think it's like you're saying, the first impression is the most boring the game will ever be.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas these days with games pacing, a lot of the time they can front load, but to be honest, a lot of the time that can be quite disappointing in a game when the best part is the first couple of missions and things like that, and then it gets samey. This is going to work around you, so you'll always start this game with the same amount. Every player is going to start off playing it the same, and yeah, you're right, it's very vanilla, kind of boring, but depending on if you want a passive ability, like you're saying 15% less energy consumed when you're making barracks and stuff, or you can go down the route of just literally chucking a couple of rocket launchers on existing vehicles. It's going to be different. How you play it and how I play it will differ. In 10 hours we'll come back and we can compare notes, have a skirmish together, and it'll be interesting because we will definitely have picked different things, and I quite like that.
I do very much. I think it's the probably the one thing that's drawn me to it, because it is very nuts and bolts as an RTS. It's like you feel like you've played it a million times before, but it's got that meta thing around it that I already kind of feel attached to my faction. I want to unlock the next thing so I can like build another class of vehicle or whatever. The strategy and all that comes in the fact that you can only take 4 of each class with you. So the classes are, as we've already kind of mentioned, infantry, light vehicle, heavy vehicle, aircraft, and so on. You can only take 4 of each of those with you, but there are many more upgrades than 4. So you can only have 4 different varieties of infantry. But you could make like dozens, I guess. But you have to pick the 4 that you want.
Yeah, swap them out for each mission or campaign.
Exactly. And at that point it becomes almost like a sports game or XCOM or something, where you're like, what's the tools for the job that I need?
Roster. You're right. And it's a game that looks like it has a very promising, I don't want to say end game, but the point when people are
the multiplayer, isn't it?
Exactly. And that, because you'll be coming against unique opponents nearly every time, unless there's an issue with balance and everyone uses the same thing.
That is a very interesting topic, because RTS games are so traditionally built around like set factions, and that's the balance is the obsessive discussion with RTS games. Like if you have the Zerg, Terra, and the Protoss, you've got GDI and Nod. Are they all fair? Is it how do they cancel each other out? What units cancel each other out? This is completely open, and it throws all that out the window. And it is a unique attitude to take towards a game. I think it's a brave move, and they need to do something like this to set the game apart, and to set it apart from the games that they've made themselves in the past. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I was going to say GGI and Nod. A lot of the people working on this game are responsible for such an iconic pair of factions there. So
the balance is going to be really interesting.
And I think long-term success, big key is balance. You're totally right. And you just have to clamp down on people that will be using whatever methods necessary to cheese. Like aircraft. I can see aircraft being a big problem in this game. To be honest,
I've already think that.
But I mean, is that a problem with the game or just players? You've got
exactly. But if you counter it with the right thing, if you've got a lot of like rocket-based things, and that's another thing in this faction creation tool, it tells you how each unit, how strong it is against all the other different types of units, and that's another part of the first impression problem the game has. It throws all this information at you, but the information is valuable. If you make a Jeep with a rocket launcher on it, it tells you by how many factors that Jeep is good against every one of the different other types of units. It's rubbish against infantry, it's terrible against tanks, but that will chop through aircraft like they're not even there.
Exactly.
And that information is really crucial to this system working well, and it is all there. There's a wall of information on this game when in the HUD and the menus and the faction creation tools and everything. Information is everywhere, and there's tooltips everywhere the first time you fire it up, but it all needs to be there if it's going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike other RTS games that are popping out, like They Are Billions, which is recently
Very
storming the internet. Very simple but effective, by any means necessary approach to attack and defense. Whereas on this, it's very much, I think you've called it in a previous video, like the rock, paper, scissors approach, where this guy's got loads of tanks, so I'm going to need loads of aircraft or RPGs. So if you're looking for a new RTS game that involves the tactical combat, where you're having to scout, gauge your enemy's units and build counter units, then this is something that maybe other games like They Are Billions and that doesn't quite scratch that itch, does it? So it adds up. Personally, for me, I just like overwhelming people with force when it comes to like Zerg and They Are Billions. So for me, going, I've got 50 infantry. How's this guy destroying me with 2 light vehicles? Oh yeah, because he's clever. You know what I mean? So it's got a lot of tactical combat really, and that'll only get more nuanced as the game progresses, as you progress, and you add all these variable factors to your units, I suppose.
I mean, the AI in the campaign missions that I've played is pretty good, pretty aggressive. I was quite impressed with it. The Harvester AI I thought was absolutely awful. I don't know why it's been the same. It's exactly the same as it was in fucking 1995, where they'll just drive through an enemy base if they have to get to resources. Just fuck off. That's annoying.
RTS Scourge for like 20 years. It's very.
So that's still very much a problem here.
The AI doesn't patronise you though, does it?
No, not at all. No, I quite enjoyed the level of challenge there. I thought it was good. And also, the campaign exposition is something that in RTS games, believe it or not, I do like to have a nice bit of context and reason for doing things in missions. And I just recently played Halo Wars from like 2009, which was an Xbox game. I played that, and then the next game I've played is this, and it's kind of a very dramatic drop off in cinematic quality and kind of exposition. I don't feel like there's any justification really in the missions for what you're doing at all. There's maybe one speech bubble at the beginning and a bit of text at the beginning of the mission. There's just none of that kind of finesse that they nailed in games like Homeworld, Deserts of Karak. For anyone who hasn't played that, that's a wonderful strategy game, and they really nailed the atmosphere and the storytelling in that game. It's just not here in Forged Battalion at all. It's closer to the kind of thing you get in 8-bit armies and 8-bit hordes or whatever, which again, Petroglyph games, both of those, that whole 8-bit series of RTS games, is closer to something like that, where the context isn't really that important. It's more about the gameplay, and that's very much evident here. And as for how things are going to move on, this is in early access. As for how things are going to move on, a quote on the Steam page for you here: Forged Battalion is in a polished and stable state that will instantly allow you to play through a portion of the game's campaign and take part in multiplayer games with up to 8 players. We wanted to make sure we entered early access with a good quality foundation on which to build a great game, which tells me that they're just going to add stuff to this, and I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of change in terms of the quality of the gameplay or the style of the gameplay or the campaign structure or anything like that. They're just going to give you more campaign missions, more maps and stuff. That's what I think is going to happen.
Additional content rather than replacement or adjustment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, overall, I'm pretty warm on it. It's decent. It's a well built game. The price is actually, early access is very cheap. It's $17 or £13 at the moment on Steam, which includes a 15% launch week discount. But for a strategy game, if you're looking for a strategy game and you haven't got one at the moment, you can't really argue with that price when it's this kind of content. You can't argue with the content when the price is kind of that low, I guess. I think it's an interesting price point for them to choose for this game, and I think it'll definitely be in their favour.
Quite a humble one, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go, Forged Battalion. It's a new RTS from Petroglyph Games. Like we said, available right now in early access for $17 or £13 on Steam. It's due to be in early access for about 6 months, they said. That's what their estimate is. So that's another kind of healthy chunk of time, I guess, before the game comes out. The price will go up, though, when the game leaves early access, which is a thing that's been happening more and more often these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Used to be newsworthy, now it's kind of standard.
Now it's, standard procedure, as is the way with the games industry, I guess. Forged Battalion, thanks a lot for listening, thanks for watching. See you next time.
This is Whiskey Team. Bombers en route. Reporting